Many would argue that Titanfall 2 is one of, if not the best, first-person shooter that released last year. Yet surprisingly, it's the subject of a lot of controversy. On one hand, we have a premium AAA title that expanded upon the original Titanfall in some really great ways, but in the other, we have a game that seems to be doing poorly in the public eye in terms of player count and sales. A curious case for a video game that should be making plenty of headway. So today, we're going to dive into the deep end of the Titanfall pool and talk about why Titanfall 2 is in a huge pickle to answer the hard question: did it fail? Titanfall was created by Respawn Entertainment and EA to combat Call of Duty by introducing similar, fast-paced, quick-to-kill gameplay while adding some new things to set it apart, such as giant mechs, mobility, and creeps. It was a genre-blending game that intrigued a lot of people, and the mere fact that this game was being developed by a team of ex-COD developers meant that it had the potential to be the next big first-person shooter, especially during a time when many people were growing tired of the yearly Call of Duty formula. So Titanfall, it seemed, had a lot of things going for it. The game was released exclusively for Microsoft platforms in March of 2014, which in itself is a strange time to release a AAA title, as it occurred 3 weeks after the launch of the long-awaited Hawk-In, a game that was also free-to-play and shared similar mechanics involving first-person mech combat. Upon release, the audience reception for Titanfall was mixed. While the average critic rated it around an 84, many low 60s were produced in the 4,500 plus Metacritic user reviews. In general, the game was praised for its polished, tight gameplay and great performance. However, many people noted that Titanfall was hampered by a lack of a single-player campaign, threadbare multiplayer content, terrible matchmaking, and some really wonky netcode, crashes, and latency issues, all things that could really kill a first-person shooter. In the end, Titanfall was soon forgotten. With the release of its sequel 2 years later, though, Respawn listened to fans and added many things, loads of new content and features, and a pretty good single-player campaign. It was the Titanfall we all wanted back in 2014. While I do admit the campaign was good, it was very cliche and at times tried a little bit too hard to make you care about the characters, but it was fun, well-paced, and a welcome addition to the franchise. And who could deny that sick-ass intro cinematic though?
Fast and agile. Graceful, yet devastating. Perceptive. Resourceful. And relentless.
However, it was the multiplayer section that really made Titanfall truly special. The movement, the mechs, the combat, plus more maps, more toys, and more modes like Bounty Hunt. They also ditched the Titanfall loadout system of the chassis in favor of more distinct Titans in Titanfall 2 to make it easier for players to know what they were up against, leading to a more even playing field. It was a new era for Titanfall. Critics and users responded well, and everything looked gold for the sequel. Or did it? Titanfall 2 is a hard game to analyze, but let's start with the original. In an earnings call by EA, Blake Jorgensen, the company's CFO, verified that Titanfall shipped over 7 million copies. And a later tweet by Respawn founder Vince Zampella claimed that the number had risen to 10 million by October of 2015. However, it should be noted that it's not clear if these figures are actual end sales or simply sales to distributors, but in either case, a smashing success for a game that was met with mixed opinions. I have to attribute this to two things. One, the hype for a new IP, and two, EA's lavish multi-million-dollar marketing campaign led by Carolyn Feinstein, the Senior Vice President of Global Consumer Marketing for EA. This consisted of many things: a free open beta, a huge E3 reveal, tons of Instagram advertising, magazines and art books, Turtle Beach Titanfall headsets, a Titanfall browser game, cosplays, Titanfall live-action shows, and even a life-sized Titan. Titanfall was everywhere in 2014. Unfortunately, Titanfall 2 didn't have the same hype going for it. It wasn't new anymore, and the public was wary about being burnt again by false promises and a half-finished game. Titanfall 2 ended up flopping in the sales department, selling somewhere in the range of 2 to 3 million units on all platforms, depending on where you look. And once those figures were in, you better believe that the press started slamming the hell out of the sales performance of a game that had been outsold by its original 4-1. This publicity certainly didn't help the future for Titanfall 2, making would-be consumers even more hesitant towards picking up the game, even though it was far better than the original. In addition to the lack of hype and the poor reception of the original, I can make the case for two things that caused Titanfall 2's quick demise. The first obvious misstep is that EA released Titanfall 2 smack dab in the middle of Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Stupid. There's no other word for it. Andrew Wilson believed that players would naturally pick up both EA games, Battlefield 1 and Titanfall 2. However, the substitution effect occurred instead. Players with limited disposable income were forced to choose between Battlefield 1 and Titanfall 2, and if they couldn't afford both, they'd have to substitute one for the other. And they sure did. And since most sales for AAA games happen within the first few weeks due to hype, many people simply forgot about Titanfall 2 when they started playing Battlefield 1, including myself. But something else may have happened that most people don't consider. Titanfall 1 was a Microsoft exclusive, and many people may have been ignorant to the fact that Titanfall 2 was coming to the PlayStation 4, the system with by far the highest population of first-person shooter players on the market. Coupled with the fact that it's extremely rare that an exclusive video game drops its own exclusivity, meant that it was quite possible that PlayStation 4 owners simply were unaware that Titanfall 2 was coming to their console. I know a lot of people actually knew this, but keep in mind that the average console video game consumer probably doesn't read Reddit, they probably don't watch E3 coverage, and they most likely don't keep up to date with the video game industry. Was this the reason Titanfall 2 may have lost up to 40% of its total sales? This theory was first proposed by Forbes video game writer Paul Tassi, and he tested the theory by releasing a poll on his Twitter, which confirmed his suspicions. 25% of his users, keep in mind, well-informed users that should have known better, thought Titanfall 2 was a Microsoft exclusive. Sure, it's just one poll, but it may at least hint at a problem Titanfall 2 had, a simple lack of awareness by consumers. In the months that followed Titanfall's release, many updates would be introduced, such as live fire mode, the return of Colony, new weapons, and more. But that didn't increase the popularity for Titanfall 2, nor did cutting the price in half 25 days after its release. Titanfall 2 has a long road ahead of itself to becoming successful, but EA is planning for it, stating, "It's not about the first day or first week sales. We will do a lot with Titanfall to continue to build engagement. It's about the long run." But really though, EA has a wide range of products that are successful, and the disappointing sales of Titanfall 2 most likely don't represent a huge threat to the company. And this is quite evident when looking at EA's stock performance since the launch of Titanfall 2. Although the tail end of 2015 was not kind to them, most likely given Titanfall 2's lackluster sales, among other things, the stock price for the corporation has been rising ever since, thanks to fantastic performance overall. In fact, in their May 9th, 2017 earnings call, it was reported that EA's total net sales for the 2016 fiscal year hit a company record of $4.9 billion, and every single KPI in 2016 had progressive growth throughout the fiscal year, something that is not guaranteed in this business. Furthermore, EA just announced also a $1.8 billion stock buyback program to continue investing in themselves and their employees. The point being, EA is in the best position they've ever been in. But does Titanfall fit into this equation, and will EA continue to support the growth of the franchise? Here's a better question. If Titanfall falls flat on its belly, will it even matter to EA? You might be surprised to know that the only time Titanfall was mentioned in this earnings call was when its poor sales figures were glossed over. Mind you, a meeting where Battlefield 1 dominated the discussion, and even the 2.5-year-old Sims 4 saw spotlight in the conversation. Neither the future of Titanfall nor its successes were mentioned. At the end of the road, Titanfall 2 succeeded as a game, but it failed as a product. Titanfall 2 did not fail. EA failed Titanfall 2. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, by all means hit the thumbs up button and subscribe here for more of our future content. And you guys have a super duper kick-ass day, and we'll see you next time.